5 of Spark, inspirational conversations that will ignite your success. My name is Peter Lawson Jones, and I'm one of the co-hosts of this wonderful crowdcast in which we've interviewed just some extraordinary men and women who have such compelling stories. And we don't like to just focus on their successes, but we want to find out how they came up the rough side of the mountain and achieved success and the obstacles that they overcame. And we are blessed to have a wonderful guest today. I'm going to let Dave Udelf, Dr. Dave Udelf, introduce her. They've been friends for a long time. And Dave, why don't you take it from there?
Well, thank you very much. And it's really a pleasure to welcome Lelia True, someone who I've known since she was, well, a little kid, 12, 13 years old, because yes, I coached Lelia in her first organized sports experience back when you were, what, 12, 13 years old, Lelia?
Yep, 12 years old.
And I got to say, and I've been coaching, oh, everybody, please don't do the age math on this, but I've been coaching for 53 years. And I can say, Lelia True, our guest tonight, was the most coachable kid I've ever had in my 53 years of coaching youth sports. And from that very beginning and what I've seen her do, it's incredible. From being one of two of the first girls to ever play in the youth baseball league she played in that I was coaching, to an outstanding field hockey career in high school that led her to an invite to the Olympic training camp, to her being admitted to West Point, the U.S. Military Academy, to a tremendous career in the Army where she earned a Bronze Star during Operation Desert Storm, and then a journey through the corporate world, which is so much I can't even begin to talk about that. And today, Lelia is the head of school of the Washington, D.C. Waldorf School, where she's been there for since 2017, I believe.
Yes.
So, Lelia, I'd like to start things off with just talking about all the different challenges you've had being at West Point in a very, very male-dominated culture and environment. But I'm just curious, what do you think was your biggest challenge? Or maybe not the biggest challenge, but some of the challenges you faced through your life and how you approach those things?
So, that's a great question. I mean, when I think about challenges in my life, it was challenges to get to do some of the things I wanted to do. And I've always been an athlete at heart since a very, very young age. And I've always wanted to be involved in sport. And for a young girl back in the 60s, before Title IX, that seemed to be an impossibility. And everything I did, really starting early on, was always really to get myself on the field, and it started with just getting on the kickball field. And, I would really do things to try to maximize my ability to get out there and play. And not only did I face a barrier being a woman, but also being a Black girl. And at some points I was a young Black girl trying to get on the field and trying to figure that out, how to get out there. I knew I had to do a couple of things. One, I had to have the skill set that would let me get out there. I had to be able to play. And, to do that, I had to be able to watch and learn and practice when nobody was looking, to be able to get the skills that I could be able to contribute on the field. The other thing I would do is I would have to have something that nobody else had. And that started off being the kickball. That was the first present I got. I remember getting a kickball in 3rd grade and having the kickball, bringing the ball to the game, man, I got to play. And so I made sure that I got that kickball. And there's even a picture of me with this red kickball for one of my birthdays. And I remember taking that ball up to the elementary school so I could get in the kickball game. And I remembered when that ball got popped. because when that ball got popped, it meant that I needed something else to get in the game. So I always have been looking for a way to get in the game. And that is what has driven me. It was what made me coachable, because I figured by listening and learning, I would be able to get in the game. And that's how I really began to overcome many of the barriers that have been in my way. It's just by being coachable, listening, learning, being patient, and being willing to really do the roles that nobody else wants to do. So again, go back to sports, to play softball, I'd catch. Nobody wants to catch. So that's where I go. I go where nobody else wants to go. I do that job first, and then I wait for an opportunity to do other jobs. And I'm there, I'm ready. And people have seen me catch. So now they're willing to let me play second base. See me play second base. Now you're willing to let me play shortstop. And you have to work your way up like that when you're a girl, a minority, whatever it is. And it's the same thing in the corporate world too.
Wow.
I'm kind of curious, what do you attribute your interest in sports to? Because you're right. Back in the 60s and 70s, that was rather unique. And what kind of family support did you have? The encouragement to go and get on the field and to play baseball. Was that
None?
there?
None.
Really?
None. It was not there. I asked my mother one day, I said, Mom, the boys invited me to play baseball. This is in elementary school, after school. They invited me to play pickup baseball. And she said, no, Leela, you just need to come home. So the next time they invited me, I said, Mom, there's a home economics class after school. And she said, okay, you can go. And so I lied. And I went to play baseball, pick up baseball with the guys. And I told my mom I was doing home economics. My mother made me wear dresses to school every day. And I would stick some pants into I don't think I had a backpack. I don't know where I put those pants, but I would sneak pants to school.
Your lunch pail.
Yeah, something. Well, I didn't have lunch either. That's another story.
Oh.
There was you had to go home and eat lunch back then. My parents didn't make lunch. You had to go home and eat lunch. And I would not go home at lunchtime. I would, at 12 o'clock, you could start playing kickball at 12:15. If I went home, I wouldn't be there in time to start kickball at 12:15. I used to eat the leftovers of other people's lunches.
Wow.
And not go home for lunch. So where this desire to play comes from, nobody in the family knows, because they did not understand it. My mother would say, you have to go to your violin lesson. And I'd have a game. And she's like, oh no, but you have a violin lesson. But Mom, I got it. So what? Violin, let's go. And I remember one time I didn't go home because there was a game. And, I got a spanking. We'll call it a spanking. But that's how much I wanted to play.
And I forgot to mention that Leela, at her experience at West Point, played not one, two varsity sports, tennis and softball. And I kind of forgot to mention that passion for sport carried all the way through.
I mean, that's two Division I sports. When did you start playing tennis? And how did you, I guess, was the tennis during the fall and softball during the spring? Is that how you were able to?
So I played tennis. That was the one sport my mom liked. So she had me play tennis. I started playing tennis probably around 10, 11, 12. And I played tennis. And my mom liked that sport because of the outfits. You had the pretty little skirt and the frilly socks. So I played tennis because that was the sport my mom liked. Now, I stopped playing tennis. I played tennis in 9th grade, and I didn't play tennis in high school for a couple of reasons. The sports did overlap. My parents began to recognize what I had a passion for. And tennis, the older I got, really, again, being a Black girl in that time period, those tennis girls were not nice. Oh. And, unlike being on the basketball court, I couldn't, to go into the tennis clubs, to really play in the tennis, it was no fun. It wasn't a team sport. And, I couldn't fight the tennis girls. So I got to high school. I really didn't play tennis in high school. When I went to West Point, one thing happened is tennis was in the fall, softball was in the spring. And I just happened to go walk on the tennis court, and I started playing at a walk-on event at West Point. And the coach says to me, she says, "Hey, I want you to come out for the tennis team." So I went out, I walked on at West Point to tennis. I was recruited for softball, but I walked on to the tennis team, and the coach he was a really great guy. Peter Castellano, he was a young cat. And he wasn't this pretentious, snotty tennis person that I found tennis people were back then. It was really an elitist sport. And I had my wooden Chris Everett racket, and everybody was moving to graphite at that time, but I could run and I could hit the ball back all day until you got tired. And so I played tennis, and I ended up being the number 1 seed at West Point my sophomore, junior, and senior year.
Wow.
Wow.
So how did you manage to, you go to West Point. First, why West Point?
Yep. So really easy, couple things. I talked to you a little bit about my parents. They were tyrants. My parents were tyrants, very demanding. So I wanted to get away I wanted freedom from my parents. And as long as they paid for school, I felt like I had to do what they told me, right? And so when I looked at colleges, it came down between the University of Chicago and the Naval Academy. And I was looking for a full ride from Chicago, and I didn't get it. So I accepted to the Naval Academy. And when the softball coach of the Naval Academy told me the softball team had been disbanded, I went to West Point.
Wow.
Yep. So that's how big much sports played. I knew I wanted to be an athlete. I also wanted to be financially independent. And I didn't want my parents to be able to dictate anything to me anymore. And I love them dearly, and they're awesome. I live with my mom now. I tell everybody my mom really has grown up and matured, and we are really, really close. Really.
Are you going to get punished because she now found out that you weren't going to those home economic classes?
It finally, I finally told her a couple of years ago, she's, I'm still able to run faster than her, so she can't catch me now. So
I'm really curious, Lelia, could you reflect back, since it's an experience that the two of us shared, that first year playing one of the first 2 girls to play in All Black, and just talk about that, because that had to be such a challenge at that age for you.
Yeah, I had never played on an organized team, and I'd always just played in the street. And so when I found out they would let girls play, I was a little scared. I was kind of scared because I didn't know what was expected. The last time I had gone to a little league game was when I was like 6 years old, and I was watching my brother, suck his thumb in the outfield, playing with the butterflies. And so I didn't know. And you had to try out. Ooh. So my dad really said, "Okay, come on, I'll take you to try out." And so he took me to the tryout, and I go there. And I remember at the Mercer Field, somebody hit me a nice slow grounder, and I picked it up and I threw it to first, and they hit a harder one. And then I picked it up and threw it to first, and they said, "Okay, go to shortstop." And they hit some more grounders, and I picked them up and I threw them, and I picked them up and I threw them. And the dad started talking, and they said they all went in a little clump, and they were all talking. What should we do? Where should we put her? Who's going to take her? Yada. They were all just buzzing. And I remember Dave Cohen, Dave Barkley, and Dave. I called him Udolph back then. I know it's not how to say it now, but
that's me.
That's Dave and Dave. They said, "We'll take her." And for me, for a little black girl, those guys said, "We'll take her." And the way they said it was, "Hey, this is no big deal. We'll take her." And, I knew a couple of guys on the team. And so I was in, and I had never had a coach before. And so, those guys were awesome, and they treated me equally. And, I was able to contribute to the team. They taught me stuff. And, I'm going to tell one bad thing. That's not bad. It was only one time I was uncomfortable. And that time was they were showing people how to catch. And so, you know, I don't know which Dave it was. Dave Udelf says it was him, but he squatted down there and he grabbed his junk and he said, "Did you ever?" I forgot what he said because he just grabbed his junk. And I was like, this is a little awkward for me.
The reason I said I don't remember that, but that's not something Barkley would do. That sounds like something I would do. And my apology, we were talking to the kids about having to wear a cup.
Yeah, and you know, it was that much, you know, and again, I didn't understand. I don't remember again why. I know I can kind of look back and understand why, but that was like, okay, this is not what I need to know.
That's part of my bad sense of humor, and I have to apologize on a national crowdcast.
And Lelia, the truth is, for any of us who have played sports, any of us guys who played sports, wearing a jock and a cup was always uncomfortable anyway. So you didn't miss anything.
The boys were probably uncomfortable too. We didn't ever talk about that again. So we just, you know, went on to the next thing. And that's, you know, but you know, I've been more uncomfortable in other situations, but that was the only time I really felt, ooh, you know, I'm a girl, I'm not a guy.
Lelia, through that whole experience, I'll never forget, just like what she was describing, just went out to learn the game. Didn't have any resentment. A lot of kids have resentment to people that they're competing for with the starting position. You can read it in their body. Not Lelia. She was just, damn it, I'm going to get this done. And went out, worked her way into the starting lineup. You made the All-Star team that year after never having played organized ball.
Yep.
And I was scared.
Ahead. I was scared during the All-Star game too, because I recognized as a girl that people were going to be looking at me and judging me whether or not, you know, I really deserved to be there. And I didn't start in the All-Star game, which I was just absolutely fine with. But I got a chance to bat, and I was just, you know, I did not want to strike out. And Dave knows, you know, I knew how to put the ball in play, right? You know, I was not I hit one triple my whole Little League career. I remember it because the guys all snuck up on me and I hit a triple, but I knew I wasn't a power hitter, and I did not want to strike out. And it was good to think guy was on first base and he went to steal second during the pitch. And so the shortstop went to second base and I was able to hit the ball through the hole and get on base. And it meant a lot to me because the other thing as a leader, I think, is being competent. I do not like to be incompetent. It's really important for me to be able to contribute to the team I'm on, whether it's the corporate team, whether it's in the school I'm in now, whether it's in the home. Being able to contribute is really key to my satisfaction.
When was the first time you actually took on a leadership position? Was it in the military? Is it?
The first leadership position I took on was in the Girl Scouts, and we were supposed to put up a tent, and I was the Girl Scout leader, and nobody listened to me until I beat two of them up. That was my first leadership experience. I just had to wail on them. I was like, you got so.
Oh, you got it. The Genghis Khan, old fashioned.
I was like, we're gonna get this tent up, or somebody's gonna get hurt. But you know, it's funny because that is my first experience, and very much I think all young leaders, you lead based on what you like, right? You know, what you expect, what you want somebody to do. You know, I talked to my son. You know, there's the golden rule and there's the platinum rule. And my leadership style at the beginning was the golden rule: do unto others as you want to be done unto you, right? So if you want to run sprints for practice, everybody must want to run sprints for practice. What I have learned as a leader is you don't use the golden rule. You need to use the platinum rule in leading. And that is do unto others as they want done to them. So just because I like sprints doesn't mean Dave likes sprints. I need to lead from where he is, not from where I am. You understand where you are as a person, but if I don't understand where Dave is, where he's coming from, then I can't lead Dave. And I have to learn that lesson over and over again. Okay. Because, you always think that people think like you. That's a natural thing. And you have to kind of step out of that to figure out what other people need. That's how I got on those teams that I got on. But that's also how I think I became a better leader, whether that was at West Point, whether that was in the military, whether that was at COMCAST, or whether that's in the school, or whether that's with my son.
I'm curious, two questions. One about West Point and that experience and going there in the minority, the racial minority and a gender minority. Which was the most challenging for you in that respect? And then you're also playing two sports and going through, especially I understand that first year is a particularly rough one, whether you're at the West Point, Naval Academy, Air Force, if you're a plebe or a first year cadet, it's tough. So just talk a little bit about that West Point experience and how much was race a challenge, if any, and gender a challenge at that time?
Gender has always been my biggest challenge because it has precluded me from doing things I wanted to do, whether it was play Little League baseball, and in the military, whether it was flying. I wanted to fly Apache helicopters. And those jobs were restricted to me because of my gender. Being African American, you run into barriers, but they're very different. The gender barrier was very firm, right? Here's the line, you cannot cross it. Gender barriers are, here's the line, step across it and you might get whatever, but you can cross that line. But with gender, I couldn't cross those lines. And so that's why I've always said that the gender barrier has held me back more than the racial barriers. Being a minority at West Point, I was a gifted athlete, and I was gifted even compared to other women and just some of those men at West Point. I could run as fast or faster than some of the men at West Point. That ability really gave me credibility. My physical ability gave me credibility at West Point that a lot of women didn't have. The first, you do pugil stick training, which is training for bayonets. And that first pugil stick training we did, they said, my squad leader was like, Cadet Miracle, go up and bite that instructor. And Cadet Miracle was a guy. He's like, no, sir. And they said, Cadet True, go attack that guy, that instructor up there. So I went up there and I attacked him and I bit him. And that willingness, that intensity is something that, they like there. And so that helped me. My physical ability, my willingness to fight, we'll call it, was something that really helped me as a West Point cadet. Shaker prepared me really, really well academically. I had no academic issues at West Point. Doesn't mean I got good grades. It just means I didn't have academic issues. And so that really helped me because I was prepared academically. I was prepared physically. I was really not the best militarily just because I had a little bit of an attitude of, well, you guys can't beat me, so I don't care what you do. Right? My parents were tougher than West Point. And so I was a little bit, what's right? I would challenge upperclassmen in a way that you really shouldn't as a plebe. My attitude was, so what? I don't care. I'm going to do this. And what are you going to do? So just a little bit. But that's probably, and because being Black and being female, people thought I had a chip on my shoulder. And I kind of did a little bit. But it was more of, I did challenge authority in a way. And some people were afraid to challenge me back, I think. And that caused me problems.
Could you share the story about that you shared with me earlier about tackling a superior officer?
Yeah. So when I went to my first unit in Germany, I was in the Signal Corps, and it's tactical. So I had a platoon of about 35, 40 people, mostly guys. And I was the only female lieutenant in my unit. And my company commander he really treated me poorly. And I think he treated me poorly because I was Black and I was a female. And it might have been more female than Black, but he treated me poorly. And I think it was because I was a female. Two things turned him around. The first thing is when we took a PT test, you got to do a 2-mile run. Well, on the 2-mile run, it was a down and back, a mile down, a mile back. I ran behind him, just behind him. It was dark. It was like dark, 5:30. I ran behind him all the way down. And then when we got to the turnaround, I passed him and ran all the way back. So I outran him. The next thing that happened was we had this company picnic, and, everybody was having a good time. And one of the lieutenants, this male lieutenant, he decided, I don't know if he snatched something. I don't know what he did to me, but he snatched something and he went to run away. And there's about, I don't know, it was a battalion, so about 300 people there. So he ran away. I chased him and I tackled him from behind. I caught him and tackled him and knocked him down and took my stuff. And for me, it was a completely natural action. There was no, no thought about it. But those two actions, that company commander, when I made captain, he came to pin my captain bars on. And in his speech, this is what he said. Captain True was so tough as a lieutenant, I could never make her cry. That's what he said. That was his praise.
Which suggests that was his intent at some point to break you.
Yes. Yes. And I will tell you, there were times when I did cry, but nobody ever saw me, because it was very unpleasant working under him. Very unpleasant.
But you went on to command a tactical unit and to earn a Bronze Star. Can you talk a little bit about that? And as a woman and as an African American, did you ever feel that some of your subordinates challenged you or questioned you in ways that they wouldn't have otherwise? What was that experience like?
So, I really didn't have a problem with subordinates because I was Black, because I was a woman. A lot of my soldiers were people of color, and they were, and I was right there with them. When we played flag football, I was there. When we played basketball, I was there. I would run with them. I would eat with them. I was with them. So the people that I led had a respect for me because I knew I would be there for them. The bond we have is really, really strong, both with my platoon in Germany and my company at Fort Bragg. And, I applied to business school coming back from the war, and I wanted to go to business school. And the Army sometimes will send you to get a degree. And I applied to business school. Then I asked the Army to send me, and they said that they would send me to Purdue, but I gotten into University of Chicago and MIT, and I wanted to go there, but they said they wouldn't send me. They would only send me to Purdue. They wouldn't send me for a couple different reasons to Chicago or MIT. And I sat down and I wrote my letter of resignation, and I wrote that letter. But I was at that unit and I could not turn my resignation in because of my soldiers. I couldn't leave them like that. We had just come back from Desert Storm. We had been through so much together. There were young soldiers that worked for me that I had said, hey, here's a good career. I had even signed up a couple to apply to West Point, and I couldn't leave them. So as a person of color, as a woman, I had both men and women hit on me, but I never had any insubordination issues from them. And we still respect each other today.
Could you talk about the respect you must have earned? What happened with the Bronze Star? How did you earn that? What went on?
Dave, I'm not comfortable talking about that just for a couple of different reasons. You know, when you're in those situations, you do what you're supposed to do. That's the bottom line. You know, for 6 months in very difficult situations with 130 people working for me, I did what I was supposed to do, and we all came back. And there's nothing else to say. There's nothing else to say about that.
That's your humility speaking.
There's nothing else to say.
Well, we'll put a button on that one.
You said more than enough. You said it all.
Curious, the way that you were with your soldiers, was that typical or atypical of commanders?
You know, I don't think it was. I don't know that it was typical. You know, I think because of my athletic background, my team orientation, you know, how I like to do things, who I am, that's just me. It's just me. And it's not something that was just in the military. I mean, if you ask people that I work for in COMCAST, you know, we had this big budget presentation. I'm like, hey guys, we got a unit game. We got to do the game first, and we'll come back and do the budget. We can get this done. Let's go play. That, you know, that is just something that is part of my core. And you know, that platinum rule stuff is something I keep trying to bring back over and over and over again. So that, you know, I watch other leaders, and there are some leaders that I feel like that, but it's, I think it's something that you just have to have that concern, that belief, that teamwork, that connection that you feel. You have to feel that connection. If you don't feel that connection, you can't manifest it. You can't fake that. You've got to feel that connection and want that connection. Got
to be genuine and authentic.
Where did you learn where did that platinum rule come in? Is that something you invented, or is that?
It's not something I invented. It's something I learned. I'm trying to remember where the genesis is, because I've held that rule for 20, 30 years. You know, I just taught it to my son a couple of years ago, and I've used it recently with young people, you know, because there was this girl and she was having a hard time with her mom, and I explained the platinum rule to her, because what I told her is, here's how you want your mom to treat you, right? And she said, yeah, that's how I want my mom to treat me. And I said, okay, do you realize that this is how your mom wants you to treat her? Do you realize this about your mom, where she, and that whole thing, that's like, aha, that's what's going on. That's why we're clashing or not clashing, because we're coming at this from our own good-hearted, right, intention, but we're mislaying our intention on what we want, as opposed to trying to do what the other person needs and wants. And I did not create it. I know it came from somewhere. I just don't remember where.
That's such an interesting point, because I do think, as you alluded to earlier, that our natural assumption is that we all kind of are the same and motivated by the same forces and want the same things. And therefore, if I want it, so do you. And if I give you what I want, then you should be satisfied and content.
Yeah. And when you're in a leadership position, that's very, very, very dangerous, because people don't tell people with power what they want. You know, you go in with your assumption, and you lay your assumption down at the boardroom table or wherever the heck you are. And when people pick it up, you think they picked it up because that's where they're coming from, but they're picking that up because you're the leader, and they're going to try to, you know, satisfy you. And so that it becomes even more important for you to really kind of stretch and understand that as a leader, particularly as a company commander who has power, as a CEO, as a vice president, as a head of school, all of that you've got to hold and realize. And it's tough. It's tough.
You just pointed out all the different things that you've done during your career. Curious, which one was the most challenging? West Point, military,
most challenging,
corporate world, or where you are now in education?
This job right now is very challenging. This job is very challenging. It's challenging because the Waldorf School is, our mission is to change the world, and to change the world, to make it a better place, to make it more peaceful and to coexist. And, I don't have an educational background. I don't have a pedagogical background. And it's funny because I've got an orientation that is naturally very different. My military, corporate, let's make some money, let's, conquer the world attitude is very different than what the mission of the Waldorf School is. And so the good thing is I always realize from a platinum role perspective that nobody's coming from my orientation. I have to understand their orientation and then make sure that we can meld it in a way, because we got to we need money. It's a nonprofit, but it's not we don't have endless resources. So to balance that takes, a lot of time and energy. And the COVID thing has crushed us. It's really, the teachers have worked so hard through COVID. The psychological impact of everything that we've been through in the past couple of years makes this a really tough job right now.
Tell us a little bit about, because most people aren't necessarily familiar with the Waldorf School. You've talked about its mission. Talk about its demographics, how many students, where the students come from.
So we have it's pre-K. So we have 2-year-olds and we have seniors, and it's about 300. And, we're located in Bethesda, Maryland. We have a highly international population for a couple of different reasons. One, we're located in the DC metro area, which has a strong international component. The Waldorf movement is an international movement that originated out of Germany. So there's a natural international component to that as well. And, we really look at the development of the child to guide our educational precepts. And, I'll give you a couple of main points. The young child, we focused on building their academic strength through natural play. We don't try to sit them at desks and teach them ABCs. We put them out in the world. We use stories to help build their vocabulary. We have them focus on their, what people call emotional IQ, how to work together with their other classmates, to build things, to be creative. We don't put things in front of the child where they can't use their imagination. So, for example, there are dolls, but all the dolls are, they don't tend to have eyes or noses or faces. You can make that doll be anything you want it to be, including, a Tyrannosaurus Rex if you want to. So what we want the imagination to come out of the child so they can build that imagination and work with others and flow with others. We teach counting and through measurement and cutting and song, as opposed to making them write these little scripted numbers. We let them paint, we let them finger knit, we let them run around outside until they're sandy and dusty, and their parents have to take all their clothes off before they put them in the car. So it's a very different approach for early childhood.
Where can I sign up?
Yeah, it's fantastic. And then in the grades, we have the teachers stay with the child through multiple grades. We sometimes 1 through 5, sometimes 1 through 8. Wow. And the teacher learns with the child, and that familiarity with that child builds a relationship that really augments their ability to teach those children in front of them. And then high school, you should see the curriculum in high school. It is phenomenal. It is very broad and diverse. All the kids play a sport. All the kids do art. All the kids either sing or play an instrument. And they're all doing, the normal academics, the Spanish or German, math. They learn Faust. They read Parsifal. They do zoology. They go on zoology trips. It is a very deep learning experience for the high school kid. And we meet the high schoolers. Our goal is for them to learn how to think critically, to imagine, and to become the whole person that they can become. So it's I'm a convert. I started with my son in Montessori school, and when I had to keep pulling him from underneath the piano, I decided that 3-year-olds were supposed to really like having what they were doing. And I took him to a Waldorf school, and he said, "Mommy, this is my school."
Really?
And that's what young children are supposed to feel.
So in this case, as they say, a child shall lead them was truly the case with you. Your child is positive experience at Waldorf solidified your relationship with Waldorf.
Yep. And I've learned so much about early child development that I really didn't understand. It's scary. The parents that are putting these kids on these phones at a young age, it is so scary, sad,
devastating.
It is, and I try to tell people, with their young children, don't do it. And, they look at me like, I'm selling them, snake oil. And I don't know, we really believe that the young child needs to stay away from the screens and that those screens are not helping those children. And
we all need to stay away from screens.
Yes, as we sit on the screen.
As we sit on the screen.
Well, we're sitting on a screen for a good cause today, so
yes.
It's all right.
Yes.
This is information. This is education. This is inspiration.
How does Waldorf differ from Montessori? Because it sounds in some ways similar.
Yeah. So Marie Montessori and Rudolf Steiner were actual peers, and they both had the concept that the child shouldn't be taught like the adult. That children learn very differently. Steiner thinks that there are developmental stages that where certain things should be brought to the child because that's where they are in their social emotional development. Marie Montessori more felt like all you need to do is make childlike material, and you could teach the child anything. So in Montessori school, for example, they all have blocks 1 through 12, right? And they'll tell the kid, here's how you use blocks 1 through 12. Now you can use these blocks. You have to take those blocks and use them exactly how you've been shown. So if you want to stack the blocks into a fort, no, you have to put those blocks in 1 through 12. There's a format, there's a formula. This is how this material is used. You can pick what material you want to use as a child, but then you have to use it as it was designed to be used. That's the young child. Steiner felt completely opposite. You want the child to build whatever is in their imagination. One of the things that caught my eye when I went to the first Waldorf school is the kids, these are 4 or 5-year-olds, had put the chairs on the desks, on the tables, and had stacked them and had made it into a big fort, and they were climbing up on things that could have hurt them. Because you want the child to go into the world. You don't want the child necessarily to get hurt, but you don't want to restrict that imagination, that growth, that connection. Marie Montessori will make the child start reading at 3, 4, 5 years old. Well, some children they're not ready to do that. And so you have to look at where that child is developmentally to determine what should be brought to that child. A lot of people, if you go and listen to what's going on with early childhood, the 4 or 5 Head Start programs, those kids are learning to read. But by 9, 10, 11, 12, they tend to fall behind because they haven't developed the social emotional basics that you need to develop as a 3, 4, 5-year-old. You don't take that away from the child. The child can learn to read at 6, It'll be okay. They do that in many European countries, and they're doing just fine. They don't need to read at 3. They need to play and learn how to play and learn how to work with other children.
You know, Leela, and I don't mean to cut you off, and if I am, tell me to be quiet, but, you know, you talk about kids going out and playing and being on their own and learning to do that. And then you talked about your own childhood out there playing, and you had to sneak that sometimes. But in today's world, parents don't let their kids go and play. They keep them locked up because, you know, they might get abducted. And they don't let their kids do anything on their own. And I'm wondering what you think about that, given your experience at Waldorf, given your experience growing up, given your experience as a parent.
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting. You know, I have one child. I am a single parent. My brother lived with us for quite some time. And I don't know if you remember Bill, but yeah. Bill, it was definitely a non-traditionalist. And, you know, he would take William out and go trespass on farms with him. You know, you let him use at 4 years old, you know, a double-sided axe, and, you know, just, yeah. And I came home, William had the double-sided axe and he was chopping up something. And I'm like, Bill, and he said, Leela, relax. It's too big for him to cut himself. It's bigger than he. There's no way he could hit himself with the double-sided axe. So I definitely have more of a go out there and do things with my son. You know, I did make him play almost every sport under the sun at some level or other. He's 17.
Oh, he's 17.
He's 17. Wow. You know, and I let him go. You know, I let him go. You know, a parent called me and she said, "Have you seen Nassim? I think Nassim and William are together." I said, "This is like 8:30, 9 o'clock." I'm like, "I'm not sure where William is. I told him to be home at 11:30. You know, he's supposed to tell me when he's going somewhere, but I let him go. I let him go. And he's a good kid. You know, if it was my brother, I probably wouldn't let him go like this because my brother needed to be held a little tighter. But, you know, William is, you know, I'm lucky. I'm lucky. He's an adventuresome, active young man, but he's also, he has some fear. And that's always good for kids to be a little fearful of stuff. You know, my brother had no fear. And so that's always very scary when children don't have any fear. But I do believe these kids should be, I told them at school, they were walking the first graders. They were saying the parents need to walk the first graders into class. And I'm like, why? Why?
Great.
And then they said, well, this is pedagogical. That's what they always, they don't like what I said. It's pedagogical. You don't understand. Well, I said, well, we don't have the parking now. So now they have to let the kids out because there's no parking, but they can get in the building.
It's not pedagogical. They can't let go.
Well, you know, we have
parents can't let go.
You know, because this is going to be out there, but you know, there was a pedagogical reason. It wasn't because the kid couldn't. They want to see the parents every once in a while. The teachers want to see the parents to connect with the parents. So there's pedagogical reason behind it. But the bottom line is these children have more capabilities than we give them credit for. You know, we have a bazaar, and there's a little store for the little kids that are, you know, it's like 8 and under can go in there. And the parents aren't supposed to go in there with them. But the parent, you know, I was the door guard, and the parent would come up and they would say, "Oh, Sally wants me to come inside." And I would look at Sally and I'd say, "Sally, would you like to go in there without your mommy?" And Sally would say, "Yes." And I said, "Okay." And Sally would go in. You know, and if Sally wouldn't go in, I'd let the parent go in, right? But that sometimes parents underestimate their children.
You can say that again.
What is the parent's reaction in that case where the child contradicts him or her and says, no, I'm fine going in by myself. Thank you.
It's so funny because the other thing, I'm like, okay, just give them 10 more tickets. Like, that's $10. Just give them 10 more tickets. It'll be okay. And the parent, I have a little bit of a presence. And so when I do that, the parent, they step back. They step back because they do just want to make sure their child is okay. They really do. I mean,
they are well intentioned.
They want to make sure the child's okay, and so you have to support them.
And they don't want you tackling them.
No. I don't.
Are your tackling days over?
No.
Not necessarily.
I do. I have told my son, because we wrestle all the time, and he is now much bigger and stronger than me, and so I've told him it is time for him to take more care of me, and that's just recently. So, but
he doesn't still have that two-sided axe, does he?
No, I don't know where that axe is right now.
Oh, that's good because he's getting to an age where he can. Oh, you got to be careful, Leela.
Well, and that's the other thing I told him. They've done things. They've gone out and done things, and they said, he says, "Mom, can we go do this?" I said, "Okay." Is something wrong? I won't tell you what it is, but it was something wrong. I said, "Okay, how old are you?" Kid says 12. I said, "How old are you?" He says 13. "How old are you?" 14. I said, "Okay, you 12 and 13s, you can go. If the police come, they're going to take you to your parent. 14-year-old, you can't go because they're going to take you to jail." So that's what. Go ahead, but the older you get, William's 17 now. You can't climb the roof of the school anymore. You can do that when you're 10, 11, 12, right? They're just going to call your parents. When you're 16, 17, 18.
There are serious consequences.
There's consequences that you don't want to tolerate. That's the way it is.
So I get the impression, I think your response to my earlier question was that your current gig, your current responsibilities are more challenging even than those in the corporate world and on the battlefield and at West Point.
Because I am not as well prepared for this role as I normally would be. It's a tough role. It's during a tough time, and the way I got the role is really nobody else wanted it. So, I was playing second base and there was no shortstop, and I ended up playing shortstop where I'm a better second baseman. So you do what you can, you do the best you can. But my goal is to get the school into a stable position. We've got an $8 million capital project to build. Guess what? A gym.
Okay.
Right. So my goal is to get the gym built, stabilize the price, and then find somebody better than me.
I was going to ask you.
Oh wait, you guys.
Do you have a what next?
I have what?
Do you have a what next?
Oh, I don't. I don't. I've never really had a what next in my entire life. I've never had a what next. I don't know. No, I don't have a what next. I'm almost as old as Dave. So
I did the calculation. You're a decade younger.
You know what? Here's the thing. When you're 11 and somebody's 21, they are old. 21-year-olds old. And so I was so astounded to know he was only 10 years older than me. I was like, because I just felt that there's such a huge gap at that age. True. And I will tell you that those two, they coached like they were fathers. I knew they didn't have kids, but I thought that they were old as dads. And so that would really make Dave, he should be about 86 now.
How did I do as a coach?
You did, you guys were great. I mean, I will tell you, I've had a lot of coaches now, and you never did anything. Did you ever do anything? I was like, what the hell are you doing? I don't know. there might have been one time. I don't know if you knew that guy that played first base. He had the first baseman's mitt. I forgot his name.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You let him play something. You let him bat or play, and I was like, "Oh, we're going to lose because of that." But I know you had to. I know you had to let him play. But that would be like the only. I was like, "What the heck?" Not now. Don't play him now. Right? That was probably like. I was like, "Oh no."
We had rules. We had to put.
I know. I know you did. He was such. I can't. Wow. He. Never mind. I can't say that. He tried really hard.
He's still around. I can hear in Shaker Heights, Ohio, for those people who, aren't familiar.
He must have become like a doctor or a lawyer, something real, because he was a diligent, hardworking kid. He kind of followed,
He works in a restaurant. That's all I'll say.
I know he was trying hard. That was, and that's the other thing. As a teammate, all I want you to do is try hard.
Do your best.
I don't care if you drop the ball. I don't care if you can't hit. But when you don't try, I hate you. That's the whole time I don't like. I just want you to try.
And your quote that you gave me that I printed in that article that I wrote, I don't know if you read it yet. Your approach to life is, I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then you said, that is one of my strongest points. I'm going to figure it out. I'm looking, watching, and seeing, and it doesn't matter what it is. I'm looking to win. And that's what you're looking for in your teammates, it sounds like. It's exactly what you just said.
It is. And when I say win, it's really important that people understand that doesn't have to do with the score. It doesn't have to do with the score. I am playing head of school and I want to win. I want our school to improve. I want our school to grow. I want our teachers to be healthy and well paid and feel good about their jobs. That's what winning does not always mean that I'm talking about the score of the game at all.
It means getting better, a growth mindset.
Absolutely.
Kaizen, the I don't know if you're familiar with the Japanese concept Kaizen, continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Because if you're not doing that, if you're not growing, if you're not improving, you're not trying to win, what are you doing? And, I'm going to get this school over what I'm going to call the finish line and make sure that they're ready to run the next race without me, because that's the other thing from a leadership perspective. If your team can't win without you, then you haven't done a good job as a leader and in building your team, making your team stronger so that they can do as well without you. Particularly, that's what I think is important in company command, in corporate America, at this school for my son. I tell my son, look, I'm an old mommy. I had you late, so you got to get going. And don't worry about me. And whenever I die, I just want you to know I'm satisfied. It's you that I care about. It's you that, I'm trying to help grow. I'm going to get you to college. You have everything you need, and then you get to go.
And I always tell parents, your goal as a parent is not to be their sports chauffeur. It's not to be their buddy. It's not to coddle them. It's to raise an independent, functioning adult so that when they come of age, they can go out there and fly on their own.
Yep.
And that's exactly what you just talked.
And hopefully along with that, raise the kind of child, and I have 3 children, that make a positive difference in the world, that leave the world a better place because they were here. To me, legacy is, I say at this stage in my life, I'm concerned with 2 things. That's continued legacy building, and there's so many ways that you do that. You do that through your children. You do that through the good things you do in the community. You do that through the tangible things, perhaps a book you wrote, a poem you wrote, a photograph you took, a piece of art that you drew. That's legacy too. So And the other thing is to stay relevant, to stay in the conversation, to stay on the field where the battles are being fought. But you really spoke eloquently to legacy when you talk about the position how you want to position your son for the future, how you want to position your school for the future. You talked about in terms of how you wanted to position the soldiers who relied upon you for leadership for the future. That's what it's about. That's what it's about, legacy.
And I want to talk about legacy. I want to share a story about Lelia. I continue to coach. I continue to coach to this day. But I remember after you graduated from high school, you were in the military, you were on leave from West Point or from your active duty. And every summer for 5 or 6 years while I was still coaching in Shaker Heights, Lelia always made a point of getting to one of our games. There she was. You would just appear at a practice, at a game. I don't know if you remember that. And you would sit. You made a point, and I had you talk to our team. I always made a point. I don't know if I did it every year, but had you talk to the team because I wanted Lelia to rub off on them a little bit. Do you remember that, Lelia?
Yeah, I my sister is 12 years younger than I am. And so
you would bring her to the game.
Yeah, that staying connected with young people that way, I think is very important. Right now I'm a West Point field officer, and I talk to high school kids about West Point. And whenever I talk to them about West Point, I talk to them about life. Because there's so much out there for them, and it's to have that understanding of really why you want to go to a school like West Point, means that you really have to kind of look at yourself and look at everything and all those opportunities. And, my mother taught in East Cleveland, and I would go talk to her class, and, she taught 8th grade, and then I would sometimes go to older kids, and the hope that would still be with the 7th and 8th grader was very different than the hope that would be in some of those 9th and 10th graders and 11th graders in East Cleveland. And I find it so important to keep that hope, keep that fire, keep that candle going, because they have it when they're young, but we're beating it out, we're putting it out, we're smothering it in the older kids. And I find that a shame. And so I always try to talk to the young kids about the great things that are coming. And I tell 16, 17-year-olds, I said, don't worry, this is the worst time of your life. You're 16, 17, 18, you don't have a lot of control. You got to do what everybody says. You got to take these courses. There is control out there. There's opportunity out there. Get this done. And your flower kind of opens up after high school. That's how I felt. I really didn't have that good much fun because of my parents. I went to one party.
Wow.
Before I was 18, one. And, I asked to go to this other party. I said, Dad, can I go to this party? He said, I'll think about it. I said, okay. Waited a couple of days. I said, Dad, can I go to the party? He said, I'm thinking about it. I said, okay. Finally, I asked him another time, Dad, can I go to the party? He said, if you ask me again, the answer is no. So I didn't ask him again. A couple of days later, said, you could go to the party. I said, Dad, the party was last week.
Oh.
And the good thing is I wasn't much of a partier. If I could play my sport, if I could have my social stuff through sport, I was fine. But it was a little bit, I was a little constrained as a teen. And so I really felt like going to West Point, being in control of myself, being financially independent, even though I wasn't making much money as a cadet or as a second lieutenant. But a stereo system, when I was 22, I was so excited. It was just those little things of doing it yourself made so much difference to me. And that's what I try to help the kids understand. You can get there, you know, be patient, do your work now, and then you'll have what you need when you go to college.
You know, I've got to speak to a group of seniors at John F. Kennedy High School next week. And so I'm listening intently to what you have to say, because I think I'll share some of that message with them.
Yeah, it's a tough time. I think high school is a tough time. You don't really know who's your friend and who's not your friend. Things keep moving around. Your teachers, you know, are changing and demanding so much of you. I never want to be a teenager again. I could do any other age, but I never want to be a teenager again.
Tougher than West Point.
I concur.
Yeah, very, very much so, because I knew why I was at West Point. I knew why people were yelling at me. You know, I knew what I was going to do. And I actually had some fun.
Isn't it great? Even though you're at West Point, which is restrictive in many ways, but you're more on your own than you were when you were at home.
Yep. And, you know, and I had a pretty good sense of humor. So that's always helpful to have a sense of humor, not take yourself so seriously.
Absolutely.
You know, I was just at West Point this weekend. My son was invited to go up to West Point this weekend. And I went up there, and, you know, I could feel the difference in some of the cadets in how heavy a couple of them felt. And that heaviness is, they're putting that heaviness on themselves. And I told William, if you go, you need to join some clubs, have some fun, make some friends. Don't, if you work, you don't have to work too hard, get your grades, but you got to have fun in those kind of places too. You just don't want to become in the classroom and that's all you do there. That's not what it's there for.
Where does he want to go to school after high school?
Well, his first choice is the wrong choice. It's not a bad choice, but it's wrong. He wants to go to the Naval Academy.
Oh no, you can't have that.
It's not a bad choice. I told him it's the wrong choice, but it's not a bad choice. So he's doing some ROTC stuff, and he has applied to West Point. So we'll see. You know, he's 17, and he'll probably. You remember how I made my decision, right? Very crazy way to make decisions.
No, actually, it was quite thoughtful and quite intentional. I mean, you could explain precisely why you explored the options you did and made the choice that you did. Made perfect sense.
But they
quite logical, actually.
They you didn't go after that. They came after you. Isn't that correct? That kind of happened.
Kind of sort of they did. I mean, the Naval Academy invited me to come up for a week in the summer before my senior year. But I loved it. I mean, I was like, wow, what is this? I mean, I had no idea. I didn't have any military background in my family except some draft dodgers. And I was like, wow, this looks like fun. And I didn't even know there were enlisted and officers. I didn't even know the difference. And when I got to West Point, I was saluting anything that had a uniform on. But the environment, the challenge, the physical challenge that was coming associated with it. And I didn't know what I wanted to do after college. You know, you're supposed to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. Those were the three things everybody from Shaker was going to do. And I didn't want to do any of those. And so the military option was kind of cool because I knew I could play sports for 4 years. And then who knows? I mean, like I said, it didn't have the next plan. It didn't know what was going to happen next. And I didn't worry about it because there was nothing I really wanted to do after college. So there's no need to worry about what you do after college. So
I think go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I think a lot of kids, they have these career goals, right? That drive them in a certain direction. And if you look at my path, none of these were originally career goals, including this head of school job.
Yeah. How did you end up getting that job? I mean, was it just you were working there and then they couldn't find anybody, so they just shoved you over to shortstop?
Well, yeah. Well, I literally, when I first went to work for them, I went to work as the operations person, and I did the finance, which I had a background in the facilities, and I got to coach a bunch of sports, Dave. I got to coach softball, basketball. I started a little swim team. I was coaching everything.
Wow.
And when the head of school decided that she was done, I said, well, they couldn't find anybody. I said, I'll do it for a year while you look for somebody. And I literally just did it in the interim while they posted the position, and they still didn't find anybody in the next year. So I said, okay, I'll do this for a minute. I'll do this for a while.
Well, Lelia, you do know that's a strategy that's often employed when they get somebody they think that can do the job the way they'd love to see it done. They don't really work that hard at finding, the recruitment process is kind of lags a bit.
I got you, but don't worry, because I'm going to be looking for my own replacement. So I'll make sure that
you can't be replaced.
I'm going to find somebody better than me. You just wait. I will. I can do it.
Okay, there you go.
I'm not going to doubt you, because you seem to be able to achieve all that you set out to do. We have, Lelia, with you, we have violated our 1 hour rule by probably 10 or 15 minutes, because you're just that darn engaging and interesting, compelling. Dave?
Yep. I knew you were going to be a great guest. I was very excited to have you on there. You're one of the first people I thought of when we started this thing. Leila's got to be on the show because she's got a story to tell.
Literally 8 months ago. 8 months ago, when we started talking about potential guests, yours was, if not the first, the second name that came up.
Well, I really appreciate it, and I've had a great time. And I will tell you, Dave, you were a very meaningful part of my life. I look back on that time very fondly. I can remember it very vividly. And I call Dave and Dave. You were awesome. So I appreciate that too.
And just so you know, Lelia, I don't think we mentioned the other Dave. Peter and myself and Dave were all classmates in high school.
That's amazing. Like I said, I thought you guys were old men when I met you. So it's amazing. You guys are doing great, and I really appreciate this opportunity. And please stay in touch after this.
Oh, absolutely.
You get back to Cleveland much at all?
I don't get back to Cleveland. Maybe after I find my successor, I can get back to Cleveland a little bit more. Well, but this job has really got me going.
Well, if I'm in DC, you're going to be getting a call. I'm going to want to take a look at your school.
Absolutely. Come on by.
And my oldest son lives and works in Reston. So,
okay.
Matter of fact, we even talked about traveling there the first week in October. So at some point, when time permits, I will absolutely look you up. I'd like to come and see the Waldorf School at work, and you would work with it.
You would be amazed. It's an awesome school, and it's a gem. And I want to shine it up so it can shine for more people. So come on by.
And if you're looking for a speaker when we're there, I talk to a lot of student groups about sports psychology and performance and all that stuff. I don't want to put you on the spot. If you don't want me, that's fine. But I'm just letting you know that's an open, I'm open to that. And
all right.
As a matter of fact, Lelia, we generally when we introduce ourselves at the beginning of the show, we generally talk about those things that we've done, and we didn't do that, or the things that we are currently engaged in. I'm a former elected official, having served as a vice mayor and councilman in Shaker Heights, then a state rep, then county commissioner. I'm a member of both actors unions. I'm a playwright, consultant, lawyer. So I too would be more than willing to talk with some of the students at Waldorf if you think that would be at all of value.
Yeah, I think my mom says she knows you.
Oh, what's your mom's first name?
Sandra.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I absolutely know her.
Yeah. So yeah, we were talking about you because I was talking to her about this program. She's actually in Florida playing in a bridge tournament right now. So she flew out there. So yeah, she's very active. So when you're in town, let me know, and maybe we could have lunch and meet up. That'd be awesome.
That would be tremendous.
That'd be great.
Tell her I said hi.
I will.
Tell your mom I said hello as well.
I will. She remembers you too. Very much so. Very much so.
That's great. That's great. Thank you again.
Thank you, guys.
And you're welcome. And we'll have this up and running for you so you can show it to everybody.
Oh. Bye.
Take care.
Take care. Thanks so much.
Thank you.